What's up, everybody? Gojo here. And today I'm going to be doing my end of the season review of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I held off on making another video on the 3 episodes that came out in between the 2 episode finale that just came out today. I've watched all of it. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to kind of skim through a couple of the episodes that I think were unimportant. Like the episode I missed last time, I skipped an episode because I was going to kind of do this thing where I uploaded a video with the 3 episodes, but I skipped an episode and then I did the 3 when the finale came out, so it would kind of be even. So I'd have like just 3 videos with 3 episodes each. But we're not doing that. We're just gonna analyze the whole fucking thing right here because I already have 3 videos and this will be the 3rd one. So starting off this episode, we get introduced to some of the reasons why Doc Ock has been selling his weapons to fund his research and to make the things that he's been wanting to make and put his knowledge out there. Typical Doc Ock. Moving on, we have Harry wanting to be guy in the chair, Peter being a little bit reluctant about this. I really like this because I feel like them putting Harry, I said this in the last episode, Harry not being his best friend since childhood was a very good aspect to play because they're going to have to build their friendship from the ground up as we see it, which is cool. And they're kind of doing that by introducing the fact that he already knows he's Spider-Man off rip, so that kind of trust and bond plus Norman end up becoming Green Goblin. All of that is going to blend together. Moving on, Peter invites Nico to a movie later that night, and we'll see what happens. He goes and stops a bike robbery, and in the midst of that, there's a bank robbery with some of the characters that bought the weapons in the beginning. He almost loses this fight, but perseveres and literally almost forgets the fact that he has a date or kind of a hangout sesh with Nico. He almost completely forgets about the date he has with Nico or kind of like a hangout, and he invites Harry, which is kind of weird, but I get that he still sees them as friends, so it makes sense that he's trying to get everybody to hang out, meet, you know what I mean? Even though Nico doesn't like him and has expressed that multiple times. But this is showing signs of Peter's character. He does this. He tends to forget he's human. That's why he's so relatable, and that's why so many people love him. But moving on to some of what's happening on the B plot with Tombstone. Towards the beginning of the episode, Lonnie ends up kind of breaking up with his girlfriend, and I don't remember her name at the time, but he also ends up earning the respect of the 10th Street Gang, 110th Street Gang, by saving Big Don's life. I wasn't going to take a bunch of screenshots to this shit because I'm just going to explain it really quick. Kind of pointless episode other than progress the story. Yeah, and this is cool because both him and Lonnie and Peter experience something serious. Moving forward, though, we have a more important episode where we start off with Peter dealing with the fact that he invited Harry without asking Nico first. So he's in the doghouse just a little bit, but it's okay because he's oblivious. He doesn't really know why she's mad about the fact that he invited Harry. Moving forward, we have the conversation between Harry, his dad, and Peter talking about him inviting over Harry and Nico to his house. So now we're at his house, and they're kind of like, you know what I mean, doing a little hangout, sleepover type beat where they watch movies, eat snacks, and just chill. And then in the middle of this, Peter gets a call from Osborn that somebody is at the building, and it ends up being Daredevil because before this, his partner tried to sneak into Osborn's office, but Peter caught her. So I'm assuming they sent Daredevil to the building to find out what was actually being hidden on Osborn's computers or whatever he's hiding. Obviously, probably some Green Goblin shit, not Green Lantern. This is in DC. What ensues after is Peter meets the Daredevil at Osborn's Oscorp building, and he has to ditch Nico and Harry, but he ends up encountering Daredevil, and they have an amazing fucking fight where you can kind of see Peter's novice in fighting and how he more relies on his abilities than his skill to fight, whereas Daredevil relies less on his abilities and more on his ability to fight. And this skill gap causes Peter to lose, but not lose that bad. He still gets a couple licks in on Daredevil, even though Daredevil's the GOAT. But Spider-Man's the go-to, you know what I mean? He has super strength and all that shit. So at the end of this confrontation, it ends off with Daredevil kind of backing off and telling Peter that there's more to Osborn that meets the eye because Peter is very naive and he loves to see the good in people. And he doesn't realize that Osborn has ulterior motives. He does have good motives, don't get me wrong, and he does have positive things that he does. It's just that everything he does is oriented towards his ultimate goal, which we'll see in the next few episodes. And keep in mind, not only is the choreography good, but the banter is amazing, especially in this scene right here. I just want to mention real quick. He mentions how he only fucks with that shit as a fashion accessory. That shit made me laugh so hard. I was like, that shit is some real ass shit that really happens. People will only be wearing crystals as fashion accessories. I used to fuck with crystals. I used to fuck with tarot and shit. Now I'm just more like, that shit isn't really real. You know, I don't really rock with it no more. And it kind of is just a fashion accessory now. I'll wear a ring or two or whatever the fuck I want. But yeah, moving on. Then we have some of the D plot where we meet Thunderbolt Ross. Awesome as fuck. And then back to the C plot with Lonnie. My bad, stuttered a little bit, sounded like that one meme. But apparently the other Scorpion gang is bullying him a little bit, you know what I mean? Fuck that shit, but you know, it happens, it's part of the story, and he ends up getting saved by his gang, so it's whatever. And while I'm on the subject, I might as well mention that the fact that he almost got kicked off the team and that he had a conversation with his brother about him being in the gang. All kind of unimportant, but progresses the story, obviously. We also get a little lore drop on how Norman used to be in the same class as Otto and what kind of person Otto is and how he is kind of a narcissist. And then it's a hard cut to him giving Scorpion his outfit that we know and love. And that's the end of the 6th episode. Oh yeah, quickly forgot to mention that Nico finds out that Peter's Spider-Man because Harry tells her. Pretty cool. Thought that was a cool cliffhanger. Peter's going to have to deal with the repercussions of his actions. Even though I don't fully agree with the way she's treating him over this, I feel like as a friend, communication is key. And she's hiding shit as well. And this is what we call projection. She is hiding the fact that she has powers from him. And she's projecting that misery onto him because he was hiding something from her. And her hypocrisy is coming out. But anyway. You'll find the Spider-Man. So in this episode, Scorpion Rising, obviously it's about Scorpion, first boss battle. They make him really menacing, which I love. But the episode starts off with Peter maneuvering his way through the school to find Nico to apologize, but he bumps into a bunch of students, which I didn't like. He ends up not getting to talk to her because she shrugs him off, so he ends up talking to Pearl a little bit about his struggles, and they kind of relate on the fact that both of them have problems with hiding stuff from their partner. Like Lonnie here is hiding the fact that he's in a gang and shit, and then ends up breaking up with her, and then Peter's hiding the fact that he's Spider-Man, obviously. But moving on, we have a little bit of Lonnie's backstory going on in the background, the B plot, and he kind of has a conversation with his mom, you know what I mean? Then he gets some more loyalty from Big Don. Moving forward again, we have Peter and Osborn doing this scene that I really loved where they are kind of trying to pinpoint Doc Ock's location by trying to figure out what he's using as a power source. So they try a couple different things. They reference Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man 2, my bad, with Doc Ock having the power of the sun in his hand and what he used as a power source. Then we move along to Harry trying to make up with Nico. So he invites her out for food, a little ride, and this banter and back and forth we have between Harry and Nico is probably my favorite in the show, besides some of the other characters that interact with Peter. Like I really like Amadeus Cho because of who he ends up being. But we'll get to that. Anyway, yeah, I really just like this dynamic they had going for them. I can already see it happening now. Harry, Nico, Peter, all getting in a love triangle, and then you even fucking throw, what's it called in there? What's her name? Pearl. Oh my God, Pearl and Lonnie, and then Lonnie's gonna start hating Peter because of Pearl, and then Harry's gonna resent Peter because he ends up leaving Pearl and getting with Nico. It's just gonna be a whole mess, and I love it. It's perfect, and these whole scenes, Nico's kind of being selfish, but we'll move past that. She's a teenage girl, you know what I mean? She's a runaway. Obviously, she has abandonment issues. Moving on, we come across some of the sequences in the show with the swinging, and Peter has to go attempt to stop the 110th Street gang from fighting with Scorpion, and these are some of the best swing scenes in the show. Like, I just full stop, they are amazing. As a fan, you love them. And obviously switching back to the B plot, we have Nico and Harry. They get into a street race, pretty cool. He like teaches her to drive and shit in his nice ass Bugatti. And then back to the C plot or B plot, I'm fucking confused at this point. Pearl attempts to pull up on the 110th Street gang and Lonnie to confront him, and Scorpion pulls up, and it just all hell breaks loose from there. Spider-Man pulls up too. It's just an all-out brawl, and they really try to mitigate the damage, but it gets bloody pretty quick. I guess this is now the B plot, since the A and B plot merged, and the C plot is now the B plot again. But they kind of have this very deep talk, him and Nico, about why Nico doesn't want to forgive Peter and perspective, and it's a really good conversation. I really love how they switched out Nico for, switched out fucking Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane for Nico as the love triangle member. It creates this amazing dynamic that Harry admits that he is a pretty boy, but he's also down to earth. He asked her for tarot reading and everything. Nico also says that they can be friends, so she's still kind of mad at Peter, but obviously that whole thing gets resolved in the next episode. So moving forward, we get back to the A plot where Peter is fighting the Scorpion, and he fucking puts his claw through this big beam, knees this motherfucker in the face, and then damn near almost wins the fight. But Peter ends up persevering a little bit for a second, and he wraps him up kind of like Andrew Garfield did with the lizard. I'm not sure if that was a reference, but he didn't really crawl all around him. I still fuck with that so hard from Andrew's point of view as Spider-Man. Like, it just felt like a spider. But in this, he webs him up, and I guess it's not sufficient because he breaks out of it pretty quickly and then attacks Peter, stabs him in the chest, and he's literally about to kill Peter on the ground, and then Norman Osborn's fucking glider saves this motherfucker out of nowhere. And then the episode ends with the building exploding and Scorpion screaming his fucking lungs off. Overall, episode 10 out of 10. You'll find the Spider-Man. Him and Nico don't make up in this episode. I don't know why I said that. I think I thought this was episode 9, but this is episode 8. Anyway, this episode's a little bit of filler. As you can see, it's the famous comic book cover where he throws away his suit, but it's not the red and blue, it's the white. So I guess the reasoning for this is obviously because of Norman and the corruption and the whole thing that happened in the last episode. And what I mean by that is he lost the fight with Scorpion, so Norman kind of tells him that he doesn't want to work with Spider-Man anymore, which I think is very interesting because we're finally starting to see some of Norman's true colors come out, and it is fucking astonishing. Like, seeing how conniving he can be in the background while also manipulating Peter is insane. But it's still cool to see that he has some of his good intention and not just a purely evil person. But moving forward, fast along, to get to the better episodes, we have a scene that I didn't really like at all. The Doc Ock thing didn't make sense. Why did they call Iron Man to stop him? When Iron Man came, he kind of just landed there, looked at him, and then arrested him. Like, they didn't need... Like, Doc Ock isn't an Iron Man level villain. He's... It didn't make sense. But moving forward, Peter is recovering from his injuries. He kind of interacts with Pearl a lot more. She is respecting him. She is talking about the science project with him, and they're kind of flirting. Like, their dynamic is beautiful, but it's all a setup because this shit with Lonnie is going to come back to bite Peter in the butt because there's only going to be a few people that know about Peter's identity, and I don't think that it's going to be right away, but I feel like Lonnie's going to eventually find out about Peter's identity. Maybe not, but I feel like it'd be a cool dynamic. We get another scene of Norman kind of replacing Ben as a mentor and telling Peter that with great power comes great respect instead of responsibility. And then we see the 110th Street gang trying to find the location of Doc Ock, which I feel like is very rage motivated by Big Don. And you can kind of see the rest of the crew doesn't really agree, but Tombstone hypes them up. And then we get a hard cut to Peter and Harry having a conversation about being Spider-Man and what Norman said in the beginning of the episode about with great power comes great respect. And Harry kind of gives him a little pep talk, and it's amazing. I love it. He kind of tells him to be himself, and that Norman's advice might work for Norman, but it doesn't work for Peter. Peter needs to come up with advice that works for Peter, and he's relying too much on others. He's very smart, so he can figure it out himself. Then he kind of says, I don't have a suit to go stop this truck robbery that ends up coming up on Harry's computer. And Harry says, you do have a suit. And then he shows him this suit that he had the science team make for Peter, because Harry is a good friend that listens to people and understands what they need and want. And he's just a nepotism baby. That's pretty much all that you know what I mean, that people round him out to be, but he's a lot more than that, which is cool. He's a regular guy. He just has a couple faults when it comes to being rich. You'll find the Spider-Man. So moving right along to the finale release of this show. This is the second to last episode, episode 8 or 9. I mean, fuck. Am I stupid? Okay, episode 9. This episode is the big boss battle between the 110th Street Gang, Spider-Man, and Scorpion. We start the episode off with Norman in jail, kind of plotting what's going to happen. Then Norman shows up. I might have just said Norman twice. I meant Doc Ock. Norman shows up, kind of gives him a narcissistic talk where he basically rubs in his face that he was the one that got him arrested. He was the one that called Iron Man, and that he also stole everything that he had in the lab and got it transferred into his name under Oscorp because of Thunderbolt Ross, which is hella corrupt, but you know what I mean? That's Norman for you. And I really think this scene is interesting because we really see the difference between these two characters, Norman and Doc Ock, between their live action counterparts, which is something we never get. We never get that. And I just love it because they're two unique characters that are both geniuses in their own right. But the issue is both of them are narcissistic and have psychopathic tendencies. But anyway, we have Nico and Pearl hanging out, kind of drinking boba together, talking because they don't have anybody else to hang out with, you know what I mean? But it kind of was uncalled for. It felt very pushed, stretched, if you will. And I just feel like they've never really hung out. All I've seen from Nico and Pearl is Pearl ear hustling on Nico's conversations with Peter. And honestly, I don't mind it. As long as the cast stays like this and it's not like super separated, I'm fine with it. We cut to the truck chase, the robbing that they were talking about in the last episode. Nico almost gets hit by the same truck, the Oscorp truck, transferring Doc Ock shit from his place to Norman's facility. And then Peter saves her right before she can use her amulet. So I think that this introduction of his suit, I know we've seen this suit a million times, but the way you build up tension for something that everybody already loves, they did it perfectly. They did it the same in the MCU with the reveal of the comic accurate shiny suit at the end of No Way Home. It's the same thing. And I've been seeing a lot on Twitter about people hating like, oh, you guys have seen the suit a million times. It's not like anybody's claiming this is something new or this is something we've never seen before. It's more of, this is just cool. Like, we're happy we have it. It looks good. Like, we're praising the show. We're not praising it for being new or doing something groundbreaking, just doing it right. And I think that's something that a lot of people are missing because the last few Spider-Man shows haven't really hit as hard as this one's hitting right now for a lot of the public audience. So I think that's something to take into account. But moving on. Peter swings Nico away, obviously, to keep her safe and shit. Then he starts fighting the 110th Street Gang for trying to rob this truck with all the Oscorp shit in it, or I guess you can say the Doc Ock shit in it. He starts fucking them up. I really like the way he fights in this scene because it reminds me a lot of Spider-Man. It feels like he really captured who Spider-Man was, and he is in his element. You could tell because he's dodging shit. He has his spider sense in full effect. I haven't really seen it used a lot in this show, but then obviously Scorpion breaks out. They get into a big fight. Right here, I'd have to complain about only one thing. I think the frame rate dropped a little bit, and it the choreography was amazing, beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but the frame rate dropped. So I don't know it if they're gonna make this show like this. They can't really do that often. I feel like it's gonna make this show hard to watch for some select audiences, but it's okay. It got better near the end of the episode when he was swinging. Another cool thing about this fight is I think Peter holds his own for it being the second fight against the same person. Um, he is calm, cool, collected, and the fact that he doesn't have comms in this fight, so he really purely relies on his own spider sense and his own intuition of how to fight. It says a lot about him. We right after get this scene of Big Don getting bitched by the scorpion and getting his life threatened. He like headbutts him, his nose bleeding, and he puts his tail up to his head and he threatens to kill him. And this for Big Don was enough to push him over the edge of I'm not doing this shit no more. And he ends up dipping on everybody in the 110th Street gang and leaves Lonnie to low-key be the leader, which I thought was gonna happen, but I didn't think he was gonna go out like this. He went out like a bitch, bro. And it was funny. So Lonnie kind of breaks into the truck to, I think, get a weapon, and then he ends up getting exposed to chemicals. Now he's super strong, of course. He starts turning into Tombstone, super hard skin. He breaks Scorpion's tail, and then he teams up with Spider-Man. They start having this epic duo team up I thought was pretty hilarious. They end up winning the fight, obviously, because they have Lonnie on their team now, but psych, that's not true because Scorpion's still alive and he dropped a bunch of shit on him and Peter, which for Peter was overkill. It's too much. You tried to kill a child. So now Peter gets a flashback of Norman saying the thing about respect and tries to kill Scorpion with his own tail, just like he did to Norman in the live action movie. So this, I think, is very impactful, important for Peter's character growth. And yeah, I love this scene in general. This whole fight was very reminiscent of a good Spider-Man story. Obviously, there's a few things narrative-wise that I don't really fuck with. Little mistakes like the frame rate or even just Spider-Man leaving Lonnie and the whole 110th Street gang to still rob the truck afterwards. And to me, that's just a, you know what I mean, like continuity, like they weren't really paying attention. But I guess it's whatever. He needs to make money and be the leader of the gang somehow. Another thing, Peter takes his mask off in this alley, which is stupid. Moving on, he has a conversation with Norman about his efforts as Spider-Man in this episode and how he proved himself. Norman, you know what I mean, obviously starts showing his true colors at the end and exposes the fact that he all along has been, not to Peter, but exposes to the audience that he's all along been double plotting on Peter's powers and trying to claim them for himself. Or I'm assuming, if I were to make a guess, educated guess on what's going to happen, is he's going to, because of what happens in the next episode with the spider he's experimenting on, he's still going to try to attempt to replicate Peter's powers, but in a suit. So I feel like he's going to be the one to create the Iron Spider suit for Amadeus Cho, because it makes sense to me. But in the long run, I definitely think he's going to turn into the Hulk. Like, that's a definite. So one of the last scenes we get is them injecting Peter's blood that they took when he was badly injured from the scorpion fight, injecting it into the same spider that bit him in the first episode. So, and that's how the episode ends. Wherever there's a hang-up, you'll find the Spider-Man. Dude, I fucking love this intro. I love this song. I love the fucking art. The last episode, everybody. We're here. We made it. End of the first season. I'm kind of sad. I was sad watching it. It was really good, dude. And this encapsulates what it felt like watching it. So we start the episode off with who I think is Sweaty Mike being sad about losing the last game because of Lonnie. And then Nico defending Peter, kind of covering for him about the project while he's beating up these goons, stopping them from stealing this car in this chop shop. And you could kind of tell he's still a novice, but he is having fun with it, which is some of my favorite Spider-Man stuff. When he's a seasoned Spider-Man, I love it too, but I really love these moments where people are yanking on his leg and shit like that. To me, it's just amazing. Then we get, you know what I mean, more scenes of her kind of covering for Peter, even stepping up to present her project first, which is, you know what I mean? She must really like this guy. And I'm assuming the guy next to her right here is probably wondering what the fuck this guy Peter has going for him. He probably has a big cock. All right, let me chill out. Anyway, Peter defeats the goons, delivers the keys, gets back to school right in time to present his broken project that they still somehow got an A on because of the girl that doesn't really talk in class, which is kind of realistic, to be honest. But then again, not really, because she's the girl that's always on her phone. So I don't know. Maybe she was reading a script off her phone. I have no idea. She didn't want to get a bad grade. But anyway, we cut to Amadeus Cho being Amadeus Cho, and Peter kind of gets sympathy points because he is cool. Then we get the big reveal of what Norman has been doing, why he has this program with all these students, the smartest kids. What I said in the first episode, his ulterior motives, you know what I mean? Kate kind of objects against this, so does Peter, and I forget her name, Shanta or whatever the fuck. He tries to launch it anyway, and he thinks it launches, but it actually is a portal from Doctor Strange. And then Doctor Strange, which we think would be from the first episode, pulls up, starts explaining why this is a bad idea. He can't launch this portal. The deep space is very unknown. Norman doesn't fuck with this. He instantly shuts that shit down, shoots him with some fucking sonic beams, gets this nigga on the floor immediately, which was crazy. I'm like, this is the Sorcerer Supreme right here. He opens the portal, and it seems calm at first, and then out of nowhere, we get Venom. Immediately, okay, but it's not Venom, but it's Venom look-alike, like somebody from Kantar, or whatever the fuck the planet is called from King in Black. Peter goes to suit up, puts on his Spider-Man costume, and saves this, I forget his teacher's name, the intern teacher, and looks cool as fuck doing it, and tells him to get out of here. He doesn't know it's Peter, so he respects him hella. He gets out of here. Peter starts kicking the spider monster's ass, low-key, with some cool-ass moves. I love this one right here. So even though they accidentally shut down the machine, Doctor Strange is still trying to get them back in the portal, using whatever techniques he can. He opens up a portal to kind of take him through dimensions, but while he uses the time stone, he accidentally mixes the two spells, I guess, because the monster touched his time stone on his chest, and it sends him back to the first episode. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The first episode has the spider that comes from the portal that bites Peter, but this is the spider that was crawling on the ceiling while Peter was fixing everything, because this is the spider that has Peter's DNA. So it's actually a time loop how he gets his powers. Insane way of giving an origin story, in my opinion, but yeah, so he never actually has a radioactive spider that gives him his abilities. He gives himself his abilities, which is hard. You just give yourself an aneurysm trying to think of it, but moving on. He repairs the portal machine to outer space, and he is getting ready to shut it down because Doctor Strange throws him in it, and he webs up everything connected to the portal that is powering it and the portal, and tries to pull it all at once instead of using all his individual strength on each one, which probably would have been faster. And worked easier, but he's not a seasoned Spider-Man, so I'm giving him a pass, you know what I mean? And it was a cool scene seeing him throw that many webs out. But anyway, moving on, the portal explodes, there's a fire, and then Norman is on TV because of the failed experiment. But anybody with regular eyes could have saw that the Venom symbiote got cut off of one of his tentacles right before Doctor Strange was able to close the portal with Peter. And this is just going to be perfect setup for next season. I love it. They're going to do the Venom, you know what I mean? Black suit, whole thing. Peter already tried to kill somebody, so I can't even imagine him letting go fully. But moving forward, we see Harry looking at memes of what happened because May and everybody are watching TV, and she kind of talks shit about Norman Osborn and forgets he's there. And then there's this really unique scene where Nico has her feet on Peter's lap, which I might be tripping, but I feel like that's another sign that Peter just pushes off, literally and figuratively. But we're going to get into that later. I don't want to fucking waste the whole video talking about their could be relationship, because that's next season. You know what I mean? I might make a little prediction video, but who knows? Depends on how this video does. My last one did really well, so thank you for that. But moving on, we get this meeting between Doctor Strange and Peter in his suit, and he asks him pretty much if he's going to be a good hero and if he can see the future. Doctor Strange tells him he trusts him. All of these panels are just straight out of the comics, and Peter takes that advice and he runs with it. He's like, he's more confident in himself. He's a teenager, you know what I mean? Then we get a scene of Norman finding the symbiote, which is stereotypical. We get that in the game, you know what I mean? That's what happens. And then something I forgot to mention in the other scene, Harry gets mentioned by Nico. Nico tells him to make a website or like a company as like a joke, and he takes it full on. He's like, okay, I'm gonna just take over and replace my dad as a company for these young aspiring teenagers that are super smart, like Peter and Amadeus and everybody else, and make them have trust with me because I'm not Norman, but you are an Osborn. So at the end of the day, it's, you know what I mean? Some of them say no, some of them say yes. Some of them say yes for dumb reasons. Some of them say yes for ulterior motives, but I think it's cool that he did that and he set it up all by himself. You know what I mean? It's going to set up a whole arc in the next season where he is fully himself and he's trying to live out of his dad's shadow, but simultaneously only doing it all for his dad's approval, which is something that's typical of Harry. And it ends up making Harry kind of resent Peter, because I'm sure Peter's knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes with Norman is going to go under wraps for another couple episodes before it gets revealed, and he kind of sees his true intentions, or kind of starts putting the dots together about who the Green Goblin's secret identity is. But anyway, moving forward, we have a couple scenes of the side characters and their stories progressing, like Kate and some other important characters that end up becoming superpowered individuals, like Tombstone. You could see his fingers are kind of flaking. And then obviously we have Nico. Everything's shaping up fire. And then we get a crazy ass scene of Peter's dad in jail for whatever fucking reason. His dad is still alive and hasn't talked to him, and Peter doesn't know, I guess. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up everything that happened in the show up until this point, and I feel like I'm really excited for what they've set up and what they did setting it up. It was just a fun experience. Maybe they could have spread out the episodes a little more, but I'm not one to complain. The style, the art, the voice acting, the animation, the story, the plot, everything was just good. I liked it, and the pros heavily outweighed the cons, and I think that's gonna shine true a lot more after the first season, because the first season usually has a lot of tropey shit in every show. You watch any first season of any Spider-Man show and it's not going to be as good as the following seasons. But with all that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and stay sturdy, my friends.